easiest way to tell you about it is probably just to go step by step through the process of landing and executing a brand deal, starting with step 1, initial contact. The first contact you have with a brand will either be inbound, meaning the brand reached out to you, or outbound, meaning you reached out to the brand. While you can see a lot of success pitching yourself to brands, it does take a lot of work to get right. Some agencies can do that for you, but I don't work with an agency and I did not have the time to do any outbound outreach myself last year, so all of my brand deals were inbound. Typically through Instagram DMs or through the contact email address I have listed in my bio. After receiving an inbound message from a brand, you can move on to step 2, due diligence. And this step is where about 99% of offers will get filtered out. Typically, my due diligence process consists of 3 checks. Is this a real company? Is this a real representative of that company? And is this product good enough for me to comfortably recommend? Those first 2 checks will help you filter out scams, which unfortunately are way more common than you might think. Here's what to look out for. First, look at the email address of the sender. A real brand's legitimate email address will almost always follow the format of name at brand website. So if the email domain is different from the official brand website, it's typically a sign that something fishy is going on. I'll also always look up the email sender on LinkedIn to verify that they are who they say they are. If they're claiming to represent a brand and yet can't be found on LinkedIn, they're probably not the real deal. On some occasions, a marketing agency might reach out to you on behalf of a brand. I actually prefer working directly with brands, so I personally don't accept those, but if you choose to do so, just make sure that you research the agency first to make sure that they're legit. If the company seems real and the person sending the email seems to be a real representative of the company, that's when I'll start looking into the product itself. Similarly to affiliate links, I'll disregard anything that isn't directly relevant to my audience or my niche. That'll filter out a lot. Then I'll try to judge the quality of the product. Sometimes all it takes is one glance at an email or one quick scroll on a landing page to know that a product isn't up to my standards. But in other cases, especially when dealing with more advanced software or physical products, the only way to know if a product is good is to test it out myself. And that takes time. And this is one of those things that no one really talks about when it comes to sponsorships. Depending on the product, it can take many hours of time testing it out to determine whether or not it's even worth responding to the initial email. This is hours of work that is done without pay, hours of work that goes without any return on investment if you determine that the product isn't up to snuff. And even if you do like what you see, you're still not in the clear yet, because after due diligence comes step 3. Negotiations. Typically, after you express interest in working with a brand, they'll ask you for your rates. And the question of how much should I charge for a brand deal is a very, very big question. Much bigger than I could cover in a small section of a bigger video about overall monetization. What I can do though is offer you some resources. I'd highly recommend Justin Moore's book, Sponsor Magnet. He also has a great YouTube channel and a helpful newsletter, both of which I'll link in the video description below. But ultimately, the biggest thing I did to land the biggest brand deals of my life last year was understanding the different elements that could be bundled together. I'm going to use fake numbers here because I'm contractually not allowed to share my real numbers, but it should be enough to give you an overall understanding of the concept. So there are 2 main types of video sponsorships. Sponsored integrations, where you spend between 30 and 90 seconds talking with the brand during your video, and dedicated videos, where you design the entire video around highlighting the brand. You can typically charge double the price of a sponsored integration for a full dedicated video. And that's where most people stop. But there's actually a lot that you can add on to beef up a sponsorship. There's paid usage, or the right for a brand to cut up and repurpose your video for their own advertising efforts. There's exclusivity, or the right for a brand to block you from working with their competitors. There's affiliate, or the ability for you to take a cut of the conversions you generate. There's even additional deliverables, such as short form posts or newsletter integrations, or even community posts. All of those are elements that you can and should charge extra for. I've even been paid to be part of live events that brands run. But regardless of what you pitch, negotiations will be hard. Sometimes all it takes is a single email to get a green light from a brand, but sometimes it can take weeks or even months of back and forth to nail down a larger deal. Sometimes you can spend weeks negotiating only for the deal to fall through at the very end. And all of that is done still without being paid a dime. But let's say that you negotiate well, you agree on a price and deliverables, and you sign a contract. Great, now you're on to step 4, deliverables. Now it's time to actually make the content that you agreed upon. But unfortunately, it's often not as simple as you make the video, post the video, and then get paid. Usually you'll have rounds of revisions where you send your video to the brand sends you notes and things to fix, and you fix them and send it to them again. So that's what sponsorships are really like. And the goal of sharing this all with you isn't to scare you away from doing that, but rather to give you a more accurate representation of how much additional work it is to make a sponsored video versus an unsponsored video.